Hey guys, so this is going to be part 4 of my tutorial series on the Atari 7800, and this time we're going to learn how to make graphics and understanding graphics. Um, um, Now in our previous programs, I've been using the Legend of Naomi tile set to explain graphics. Um, and this is cool and all, but you can't use it for anything else. So what do you want to do if you want to make your own graphics? So we're gonna use a program called Antrax, and Antrax is really good. I completely recommend it. It comes with some examples. We can look at Golf for the Atari, and you can see it's a very useful, versatile editor, and you can go through different sprites. In fact, you can even change the modes. For example, with this 160B Dragon sprite, we can actually change its mode to 320C, and yeah, it gets pretty messed up. Um, let's change that back. Um, yeah, and we can actually do it for all sprites. For example, I can do this with this sprite, and if I turn on kangaroo mode, the whole background turns because that was what the designated background color is. Now, see, for 320D, you'll notice there's no change, but there will be in some cases. So this kangaroo button down here, it's kind of hard to see, but it's right about there. Um, the point of it is so that you can see what the sprite looks like both without and with kangaroo mode on. Now, the reason why this is important, we'll get to that later when we talk about graphics modes. So if you want to get out of there, um, let's just So the first thing you're going to need to do to make graphics is select the Atari 7800 because it also supports NES, Pico 8, and also none, though I'm not sure why you want to do none. So you'll see the 6 graphics modes. Now, 168 is your standard 2 bits per pixel mode. You'll see it everywhere. For example, this is 168. 160B mode is your 13 color mode. Well, it's 12 colors, but 12 plus transparency for a total of 13 colors. 320A is your monochrome mode. Um, 320A is the mode you will see in games like Frenzy. You'll see it in games like this. Notice how everything here is in monochrome. This is an example of 320A graphics. Um, 320B is your high-res 2 bits per pixel mode. So well, games like many of Pac-Man Plus's early titles use this mode. However, it is limited in the fact that you only have two 3-color palettes and it has a bug, which we'll get to later. 320C is my favorite of the 320 graphics modes. If you go to its Series Time 4, which is up here, you can see it being used in Sears' sprite. It allows for 4 colors, but it has the limitation that you can only have one color per two colors per 2 by 1 cell, and you can only have a maximum of 4 colors. In 320D, this mode is weird, but it allows you to have more colors than you think would be possible. So let's select 168. So as you can see, we can change our colors by going over here, and changing the colors. So So as you can see, we can go up here and select our 8 different palettes. Now, one major limitation on other consoles, like the Nintendo consoles, is that only certain objects can have certain colors and others can't. But on the Atari, it's all universal. All 8 palettes are available for everything. However, in some modes you can't use all 8 of these, which we'll get to later. So if I want to change, granted, it doesn't do anything right now, but if I were to click on one of these, this is our NTSC color palette. Granted, The PAL one is a slightly different, but it's like 99% the same. And so if I select color, like if I select this to be that, now I can change my color, and you can see what it would look like. Now, granted, this one is slightly wrong in that this bottom row should be browner than it actually is. So this is what you would see on an LCD screen. So if you were to plug in Atari up to your LCD or newer television set, this is what you would see. Um, but anyways, I can easily set my colors to be, well, red, white, and tan, like this. And I can go right ahead and draw a cirrus, just like this. And if I turn on kangaroo mode, we haven't defined our background color. So as you can see, BG pops up here. So if I enable kangaroo mode, we can set BG to hex 76, which is what I always use in my early games. And as you can see, it's starting to look a little bit familiar um with Cirrus. And I can go ahead and draw the Cirrus sprite. Um it looks like this. Also, the whites look more like they're gray here, but on a real console it would look white, so don't let that fool you. White is white. We do have our white. Granted, we don't really have a great bright red, but we do have just about everything else. So again, I can go and mess up my own character. Um, but yeah, this is just about what Sirius looked like in the first game on the Atari. This is what he looked like. Now, you'll notice that since I've selected the mode and actually drawn here, I can't go into just any mode I want. So, for example, let's switch into 320 mode. Can you see how everything's dithered? Now, on an RGB or S-Video Atari, you would see this. But on a composite Atari, you will see color. You'll on my RF Atari, I remember seeing red and green. However, it's not as logical as you would think. So a 1 pixel wide section like this would still show up as 1 pixel, but sections which have gaps that are 1 pixel wide will show a color there. Unless there is 2 pixels and then nothing. For example, a section like this, as you can see with my 2 pixels, this would still show up correctly. There might be a little bit of color in between, but it should generally show up right. Which is one of my arguments for why I like to do 320 mode. And artifact colors. Artifact colors work similar to an Apple II, so if you've ever programmed an Apple II, you'll know how that works. Um, and then you'll see our 320D mode. But wait a minute, what's that? If I turn off kangaroo mode, why are there 3 colors? There should only be, we should only have, if you remember correctly, we should only have 2 colors, right? Because it's 1 bit per pixel. Oh, and yeah, that's something else I should explain. 320B and 320C are quote unquote 2 bits per pixel, and 320A and 320D are quote unquote 1 bit per pixel. Of course, Maria recognizes everything as 2 bits per pixel, as well 5 bits per pixel. That's how it plots data on the screen, and these different read modes is simply just, it reading that data. The 2 pixel positioning is one of the main reasons why many Atari coders will not use the 320 mode for their games. And this even dates back to the Atari 8-bit computer. Its 320 modes also had that same issue, and I believe that the Amiga OCS and ECS, well, OCS specifically, had this same issue with its 640 mode. Um, but you'll see with 320D mode, this is weird. I don't remember this being a thing. And if I switch back to palette 0, again, you'll see this gray color. Now, this is one of the strengths of 320D mode. It's a strange mode, but once you harness it, which we'll get to later, it's very powerful. So back to our sprites here, and as you can see, I changed the palette. So if I go back here, it'll show up correctly. How to add? You can add another object. Let's add another object. And let's select a new mode. So let's select 160B mode, and let's change our colors. Just some random colors. Maybe throw in some greens, some reds for flower. And as you can see, um, you'll see this in just a second. Um, you'll see that where our little grid here, it's only 16 by 16. I can obviously change that, so let's change that. So now it is 32 by 16 instead, and we can make it taller. And as you can see, now it is taller and wider, and so I can just draw some abstract landscape. Let's make this green brighter. We don't need a dark green. And also, I think the Atari would have done quite well as a video expansion for your Atari 8-bit system. So perhaps you could buy a console, and then if you didn't have a console, but you had a computer, you could buy this expansion for your computer. Let's add a brown so that we can. And as you can see, after I use the bucket tool, it'll stay on. So if I do this, now our sky is brown, which we don't want. So let's make it blue, or actually a brighter blue. And, I can just continue drawing. I'm not that great of an artist, but hey, um, when you're working with these low resolutions, nobody's really gonna notice a difference. So, my high-res artwork is, pretty bad, as you can tell by, um, it's Sears time 5. But yeah, I can just continue drawing my little scene here, right? Draw a tree, my, very professionally drawn tree. Um, but yeah, um, and there's my tree. Maybe give some birds in the sky. And there is our little scene. And of course, we can put objects over here. But this is a 32 by 32 scene. And this is what 160B mode looks like. In fact, I've not even used all my colors, so to use some more groups, to use some more colors. Also, as you can see, these little commands like E, F, Y, all these little commands will change your tool. R, Shift R. Yeah, you get the idea. And obviously our move tool moves the background. Our select tool selects stuff. And then you can use this tool to move that section around. Um, and again, I think that it's imperative that you learn how to use this because this is one of the absolute best 7800 editors I know. Now, as you can see down here, here's another one of my editors. And believe it or not, but this is what I used to make The Legend of Naomi. Now, um, you'll see some of the imperfections with our new editors shortly. But trust me, um, things fall down fast. So if I do this, look how I have to draw here. Yeah, it's buggy AF. And as you can see, there are 0 bytes left. So if I scroll using these buttons, this is what the whole tile set looks like. and you could click show and see what it looks like. But yeah, this is what I had to deal with until 2025. Um, but yeah, this is way better. So second, let's make a new group called, and we can rename it. So edit, high res, high res, objects, save. So, oh, and back to here. We have only, you'll see that when I switch it to P1, P2, or P3, it does nothing. You'll see these colors change, of course, but nothing else. But once you change to P4, notice that now it's using our second set of colors. So with 160 mode, with 160B, you get two options for colors. Granted, both of these scenes still have a maximum of 12 colors. The colors are just different. So back to our high-res objects, we'll use 320A mode. Now what you'll notice is that this is not intuitive at first. Um, this is not intuitive. So if I place a color like this, why is it placing 2 pixels? Now, this is one of the things. On the Atari, your transparency does not work on a 1 pixel basis. It works on a 2 pixel basis. Because remember, Maria, the design in 1984, for the NES, right? NES was still in Japan, and it was the Famicom, and it was kind of just a shittier version of the NES. It didn't have any worse specs or something, but it was prone to breaking, and the early 1983 and 1984 Famcoms were pretty shitty. Um, they were RF only, and so the Atari 7800, having a 320 mode at all, which is better than the NES, was what was the goal, and not having a crazy 320 mode. Because that was seen as unnecessary and cost addition. So the 160 mode was really meant for the games, and the 320 modes, sure, you can use it for games, but it was really more so meant for a score and maybe a title screen. So if we go to 1942, for example, here's 1942, you'll notice that this title screen is using 320 mode, but in game it looks like this, and this is 160 mode. Now, again, let me tell you, don't don't judge the 700 based on its low resolution. Judge it based on its amazing, mostly 256 colors. So again, I can still draw Sears, again later, but as you can see, it draws as if it draws just like it would have been in. I'm gonna change to black so it's more obvious. It draws just like it would have been in 160 mode. And if I change it to 160 mode, then our colors come back. And remember, the Commodore 64 and the Atari 8-bit were the two best gaming computers that were cheap. Of course, you could get better ones if you wanted to burn some cash, but again, um, we're not talking Apple price. We're talking $300 price. And they certainly did not have flashy 160 modes either. In fact, the Atari 8-bits through 20 mode, just go back 5 years, it was monochrome. The only way you could get more color was by adding sprites and using some special tricks, including artifact colors. So next, let's see 320B mode. Now, you'll see these four different blank colors. And if I try to paint with them, nothing seemingly shows up, right? Like there's nothing showing up. But wait, let's turn on kangaroo mode. Suddenly, there's color here. And you'll notice this shows up here too. This is the one bug of the 7800. The kangaroo mode is necessary for 320B mode to work quote unquote properly. Um, and again, as you can see, um, there's no switching modes. If I want to switch a mode, I have to go back to here, paint over everything so that nothing shows up, And then, yeah, I still can't switch modes. Once you are locked in, you are locked into a mode. But if you control Z your way out, you can switch modes. But back to 320B mode. Now, if I wanna, again, just like before, we only have two unique palettes. So let's go back up here, and switch to using three different colors. So let's go with our same, let's go with our same colors. So 43, 43, OF, and 2F. And it's a bit harder this time, but we can still draw Cirrus. And again, remember that before 2025, I did not have this. I had to suffer through with my very own tools. And you want to see what that looks like? Looks like this. Yeah, that's right. I had I had to make my graphics with cursor operated tools. This is how I made my graphics. Do not laugh. This made it serious times for graphics. But yeah, as you can see with this, it's much better. It is much better than anything I could have possibly made back then. But yeah, again, and I'm making the exact same sprite. As you can see, I made a mistake as I did before. I don't have to make a whole thing to show you it's possible, but I might as well do it. As you can see, I placed him too low, so we can use the this tool and then use this tool to bring him up. In fact, the original Seer sprite used in the older games was even taller. He was 20 pixels. It was kind of hard for me to get him to fit in such a short stature like this. Um, as you can see, yeah, I made him, and even then he still looks kind of chubby like that. So they're serious in 320B mode. And I only used 320B once. It was for a canceled It's a Serious Time 2 game. Which I actually didn't even know existed until recently. Um, let's make a new object. Oh, and also one other thing, the moment I turned kangaroo mode off, all of the red that was not touching a different color, which is all of the red in this case, goes away. Completely disappears. This is why I didn't use 320B mode, because again, using kangaroo mode means that I have no transparency at all. So objects would have these ugly black squares around them. And what's worse is that, remember, back here, if I turn on kangaroo mode, it only gets worse because remember our zones? Yeah. Again, where do I store the control? That's black and white mode. Not that. It's the next bit up. It's not 4B. It is. Or I think it might be 4B. No, it's not. Hmm. For 7. Yeah. Now you can see our ugly black boxes. And notice how when I jump, it shifts over. Yeah. Now you see why I didn't like to use it. So our object 5 here. Um, we'll use 320C mode. Now, you'll notice that 320B mode with kangaroo mode on has access to just palette 4, but 320C mode with palette 0 has access to this color, this color, this color, and this color. This is an artifact of how colors work on the 7800. You only have access to color 2 in 320A and 320C from every palette, and in 320B and 320D, we'll get to 320D after 320C. You have access to only two palettes, palette 0 and palette 4. So back to this. Let's make serious again. This time, we'll make it again using palette 4 because I don't want to mess up my actually somewhat nice in here. In fact, we'll add some highlights on the tree on the side. And edit the shadow a bit. So that makes sense. We'll make Sears again, but this time we have 4 colors, so we can actually make him have blue and still have his white eyes. So like, if we try to make him blue here, um, make him blue. Now its eyes also turn blue, and that just doesn't look right. So we can try and do this again. So we have white, but this time we have 3 green colors. So again, 4-3 OF, or no, we already have that. We have that over here. This time we'll add a blue, and 8-3, and again, of course, our 2F. Um, Now the thing is, you're saying, well, if this is tan, wouldn't this also be tan? And yes, it is, but again, if you there's a quirk about 7000, which is if you leave it in a cold environment for a long time, and I do mean a long time, like it has to be really cold. Like we're talking 20 degrees Celsius or 20 degrees Fahrenheit, or like what? Negative 10 degrees Celsius for your non-freedom people. Um, quote unquote freedom. Um, well, that's a joke. But again, you'll see that we have our colors. For the record, I was joking. Um, but you know, um, we can draw our serious right again. This time with This time we can draw them with 4 colors, which is the quote-unquote proper way. And you'll notice that we don't need kangaroo mode either. Nothing weird happens, except for these black areas, um, which would just be background color. Like, again, you'll notice that here it doesn't show up, but on a more accurate emulator it would, and it's really not that big of a deal, to just have little blank areas. I mean, of course, it's still visible, but again, not the end of the world, considering the better resolution. I draw another example sprite, but really, I don't have any good other example sprites to show you that are recognizable. Because I've only made one 320 mode game, and it's this. And Mighty Funster indeed is right when he says that 320 mode is inferior, because it is. He's entirely right on that. To 160 mode. And as you can see, I can switch into 160B mode, which completely screws up everything. And then finally, our weird mode, 320D mode. So 320D, you'll notice that with palette 0, we only have one color. It's just like 168. But if I change it to palette 1, suddenly we have suddenly we have three colors. Um, Now I have not really fully harnessed I've not fully harnessed this mode yet, but what you can do is you can have little specks of like brown in here as well with your um with your um with your sprite here. And we could see how if we change it to palette 2, palette 1, palette 4, it all just changes. And again, I have not really harnessed this mode, so I'm not really the best person to ask about this mode. Now, what do we want to do if we want to export our graphics? Because having a graphical editor is cool and all, but it's not really cool if you can't export it. So what we do is we're going to export our ASM file. And our starting address, we're going to make it text C000. Um, so we'll copy our graphics, and we'll go back to our program over here. Not serious time for, but our third program back here. And well, first we're gonna make a new project as graphics, and paste in our graphics. Um, you'll notice some things we're gonna have to set up. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. So let's turn that off. And going back to our third program, we can get rid of our include statement down here and change it to include graphics. Don't forget to add your file type. And you'll notice it's at the wrong location. So we'll put that back, and we'll get rid of the it's here time for graphics. And as you see, I incorrectly referenced it. So let's go back to our ASM and change it to hex A000. One thing you'll notice is that I like to put graphics in 4 specific locations. Um, yeah, as you can see our tree graphic, but it's upside down because and you'll notice it takes up 2 different sections. Um, it takes up 2 sections and not 1 section. So actually, I'm gonna need to put this at 9,000. Now, granted, we're not gonna be able to see the top of the tree, but what we will be able to see is we will be able to see um we will be able to see part of it. So going back here and then include graphics. Okay. And again, we have to delete all this junk. Well, it's not junk, but it doesn't work right on here. It would work right on a different one. And now you can see our graphics showing up. At least some of it. And if I change it to a different mode, control, we can see some of our sprites showing up properly. And if I put in our colors, so there's one of our colors. Let's change it to using Sears colors. So deleting all this will change everything to black. Oops. Seems like I did it wrong. Um, and yeah, as you can see, our sprites have shown up. Now, granted, some of our sprites haven't shown up. Some of them have. So if we want to see our 320B mode sprite, as you can see, it's kind of glitching out over here. Um, we're gonna have to use a different control mode, this mode. You'll see some of the stuff looks weird, and now we can see our other Sears sprite, but again, his arm is white. So what we'll do, and as you can see, I messed it up. Um, there we go. Now our other sprite is white. Now, if we want to do our cool looking now, granted, this is not entirely correct again, unfortunately. Um, we need to go up here and enable kangaroo mode. If we don't, and we were to try and export this, so let's try and do that. And go to our, let's see, have they updated it to emulate it correctly? It looks right here. Um, you'll notice this weird Morar effect in the background, and that's just because we're running it at the proper aspect ratio, but it's a digital display. So we can actually go into display and change it to pixel perfect, and now it looks, well, normal, even though it's not. It makes everything wide. And if we want to see, I'm not going to torture you with this for very long, but this is what it would look like on a wide screen. Yeah, I had to live with this until recently in 2026 on my real Atari 7800. Oh my gosh, I, it wasn't quite this bad. There were still black bars on both sides, but oh my gosh, it sucked. Um, and yeah, we can torture you even more with this. But yeah, this is what a real this is what a real Atari 7800 would look like. Um, and if I try to download it, maybe we'll emulate it correctly, maybe it won't, but again, on a accurate 7800, yeah, see, it emulates it correctly. Notice how his hair and his body's missing. This would not be a thing, um, on our other sprite. And of course, we can also make our 160 mode Cirrus show up. However, we need to change the write mode of our object because we're using the wrong write mode. Because remember, we have 3 read modes and 2 write modes. So let's go back down here and enable, and we can enable our different write modes. So backwards, where's the store? C0. Change to 40. And now, as you can see, our colors still show up right. Our big fat series shows up correctly. And again, back when it was still called It's Connor Time. That is what he looked like. If I start the game up. Oh, and yeah, um, if you thought this game was better, you are wrong. Oh boy, you are so wrong. Um, yeah, this is what hard-coded graphics looks like. Um, you can just tell how much fun I had making this work at all. No graphics editor. That's what it looks like. At least it's somewhat normal on an Atari 2600. So like, if I were to go into the source code for one of my other games, it's Serious Time 3. Um, you will see you'll see all laid out like this, but um, and our sprites here, right? Um, but in that case, it looks normal because I don't have to do crazy stuff. Because the Atari 7000 graphics system is very strange. So, now finally, let's go back down here, change our write mode back to C0, so we can try to anyway, make our little tree show up right. So back to this object with our stuff. Granted, we're only going to see the top half, so this bottom half won't show up. Um, which is unfortunate. It's why when I make my objects, what I'll do is I'll make the top half and then the bottom half. So so that they'll be laid out side by side and not like this. Because if I tried to point it here, I would just get nothing. Nothing would show up. Because of the holy DMA. So, for example, so going back here, um, so copying my bad. Oh right, 'cause I also forgot. And always make sure you test on an accurate emulator. I use a 7800 for my emulator of choice. But yeah, so going back down here, let's remember going back here. Remember our colors. So so 2, 3, and again we can test for colors we do need and don't need. So this color we don't need. This color we do need. Do need. Do we need this color? No, we don't. So going back up here, um, colors we do need, and we do we need that? Yeah, we do. And thankfully, if you make a mistake, you can't correct it, but you can just change the color back. And we don't need that either. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, yeah, I can just draw a little rows as well, but we already exported our graphics, so any changes we make here won't sh won't show up anywhere else. So back here, again, just remember these colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So So our colors are 2, 3, 2, 3, then EA, 8, 2, and as you can see, our background is slowly showing up. 4, 8, um, 1, 3, and our final color, 8, 6. And we're missing white, so we also need, and that's our little scene. Um, as you can see, I didn't quite do it right, and you can see that some of our colors are just a bit different. Again, those are what the more accurate colors would look like. I probably messed up this one. Which one did I mess up? Well, whatever. I messed up one of the colors. So, and if we want to get our bottom half of the image, what we would do is go back here, ay, 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 clone this object, move it, because remember, we're gonna need to move it. And then we're gonna we're gonna move our whole thing up by selecting the whole thing, and then moving it up. If we did it right, we should be able to make, yep, there we go. We did do it right. So let's go back here. Um, export our object. So I'll see it's in the wrong category, but for demonstration purposes, we don't care. Copied it again. Go back here, paste in our new graphics, delete all the junk, and you'll see our bottom graphic showing up. Yeah, I messed up the dark green. We can change that in just a minute. Keep it slow. And there we go. Our little image here is showing up in all of its glory. Um, Now, going back to the one I messed up, which is this color. Click on it. 1, 3. And as we can see, I stored it in the wrong spot. Um, so EA. Oops. So let's change the hue. No, 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 no. As you can hear, my dog's barking in the background. And that's better. And our little 160B image shows up in here. And of course, we have a total of 25 color registers. However, only 9 of them, or only, or in 320b/d, only 7 of them actually do anything. Um, but in 160 mode, we get the full set of colors. Also, I forgot to define one of my colors. So if we go back down here, which one did I forget? I forgot this color. Yeah. So go back here, and that's too bright. And there you go. That's all 6 graphics modes. And of course, if we want to make our other objects show up correctly, we can do that too. But I'm not doing that in this example. Regardless, that's our third program. Actually, this is a fourth program, so copy this, new project, fourth program, and paste it in. And that's it.